Right now I'm renting a property that doesn't have laundry in the building or in the unit, and it doesn't have parking, and it's on a busy street.
Ouch.
Yeah, I know. I like to highlight that. It's like, please notice that there is no laundry on site and it's street parking only. And that
Mhm.
just saves time for everyone.
And then I'm sure you're getting way more inquiries on it because of the price. So
Exactly. Welcome, everyone, back to Invested and Rested. We are here, just the two of us today, and we thought we would share with you some of our rental screening tips for when you're getting new tenants. So I know a lot of you self-manage your properties, and I used to self-manage my properties. Rianna still does self-manage her properties, and my day job is as a leasing agent. So I have a lot of experience in this, and so does Rianna. So we thought we'd share with you all of our tips and tricks. You can read all about this online, of course, but maybe some real life stories are going to help you and help you figure out some good ways to get really good tenants in your properties. So, you want to start with the first part, Rianna?
yeah, for sure. So step number one is pre-screening. First, you're going to list your property online. On there, you're going to publicly post your screening criteria. Why would you do this? Because it's super helpful to get onto the same page. And in some areas, it's actually required that you post it. Is that the same for you or?
It's not required to post it in the listing for us, but it's required to
Okay.
have it on our website. But yeah, so I think it's a great thing to do though. Like we have cheaper properties where people are asking what the credit score requirements are, and it just saves everybody time if you show it clearly, like what you're going to accept. That being said, personally, I've made some exceptions sometimes only if their story matches up with what they've shared, but we can get into that a little bit later. But what I find to be really helpful in this pre-screening process is when you do list it on Zillow or Trulia or whatever, they inquire. What I do is send a video tour. So this is just me with a phone camera taking a video, uploading it to YouTube. And in that, it's a way to have a touch point with them and say, hey, can you share with me a little bit about yourself and your move-in timeline? There's a fair amount of people that are like, oh, I want to move in 3 months from now. And it's like,
Yes.
why are you reaching out right now? Like some people just don't understand that when something's vacant now,
Mm-hmm.
the owner is going to want somebody to move in soon. So that's number one. And then
I
number
always think
two,
that's so funny too, like from their I don't know. I can't get in their head on what that's like because that's one of the things that I always ask people too is what is your move-in date? Because people, yeah, they have the craziest, in my opinion, timelines.
yeah.
And I'm like, I posted it on there.
Did you
Did you
not
not
read?
read it? Or
No.
why are you looking and thinking that this would work? But okay. Imagine this. You're surrounded by a small group of women in a beautiful home, eating healthy food, and of course, some chocolate. The women have an entrepreneurial spirit like you. They want to grow, they want to expand their minds, and they want to make their life dreams come true by investing in real estate.
Does this sound like something you might want to do? I know that's where I want to be. And we are in the midst of planning our 2025 retreat. We're only taking a small handful of women. So if it sounds like something you might be interested, head on over to investedandrested.com, get on our email list, and you will be the first to know and have the opportunity to join us next year.
Yeah.
Continue.
They don't read. And I also live right near Berkeley, and we live near UC Berkeley. And UC Berkeley is really a mix of people that are just Berkeley residents and then the college students. So like if I have a property near the college in like May, everybody wants it for August when school starts for now. And I'm like, no. There are some student properties that are taking it, but our company is not for student rentals. So the second thing I do is ask them to tell them a little bit about themselves. And I think this is just a great way to like learn a little bit about them, find out if they have pets, find out what kind of job they have, just get a sense if they're a good fit for your unit. And what I like to do in this email too, like right now I'm renting a property that doesn't have laundry in the building or in the unit, and it doesn't have parking and it's on a busy street. So I like to highlight that.
Ouch.
Yeah, I know. I like to highlight that. It's like, please notice that there is no laundry on site and it's street parking only. And that just, again, saves time for everyone. You don't want to be running over there all the time to do showings only for the person to say, oh, there's no parking. Oh, well, I really needed laundry. And it's like, yeah, I know, but it's
Right.
priced the way it is because it doesn't have those things. So,
And then I'm sure you're getting way more inquiries on it because of the price.
exactly.
So if you were to just go over there for every single person and not do this pre-screening, you would probably be a bit burnt out.
Yeah, exactly. And this property in particular is like 25 minutes away from my house. So like really don't want to go over there if I don't have to. But yeah, so I think that's just a good way to start it off. And I like having those touch points before even showing, because then you've just gotten, kind of accustomed to their communication style. If you feel like you're a good match as a property manager tenant, especially if there comes a situation where you have multiple people to choose from that are equal, then you do get to choose personality wise in that scenario.
Nice. Yeah, I do something similar. I usually have like 3 questions. I don't do a video, which I'm like, I should really do that. And I have one I think that's going to be coming up, and I'm so sad about it because, long story, basically it's coming up in the winter, so it's just kind of tricky.
Yeah.
But my 3 questions are: do you have pets? When do you want to move in? And how many people are moving in?
Yeah.
Because sometimes we run into some occupancy issues where even cities, I mean, obviously always check with your local laws and stuff, but I mean, I also don't want 10 people in a 3-bedroom with 1 toilet. But sometimes cities also have occupancy laws to follow.
Yeah, mine do. I just found out about it recently. Like a local city, for a 2-bedroom, you can only have 5 people maximum.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like it might be like some fire hazard or something too.
Yeah, could be. But I didn't, before that, they asked about it and I didn't even realize it was a law. But good to know. And it makes sense. And then it makes it easy to say, no, sorry, that's not allowed to have 6 people in a 2-bedroom.
Yeah, I'm not the bad guy. It's the city.
It's
so
the city, yeah.
Don't come knocking on my door.
Yeah.
And then the other thing too is if there is something specific about the property that I've heard multiple times, or that's like, maybe deterring some people, like parking or having no laundry, like you mentioned, then I'll also say, are you aware and are you okay with, for example, a place that I was just leasing doesn't have a garage. It's just one off-street spot, but there's plenty of on-street parking. So, and it's a 3-bedroom. So people typically have more than 1 vehicle. And that's something that people have had an issue with before. So just like you said, it helps save me time and it also helps them save time.
Yeah.
That they don't have to come out.
I think expectation setting too is always good. Like we have this one property that the owner wants to sell in a year, and it's a big house that's empty. And so I've been telling everyone, like, are you okay that this is only, I listed it in the listing, but also saying, are you okay that it's only 1 year? Because that's, everybody's so scared about California laws and whatnot. And yes, there are a lot of tenants' rights, but when people come in with the expectation, I only get to be here a year, the owner's going to sell the house, then they're going to be okay moving out in a year.
Yeah.
It's when you just like spring stuff on them and try to be
a slumlord.
Yeah. Or vague about stuff. Like that's when people get pissed off and don't want to leave and lawsuits happen and all that stuff.
Yeah. So question, when you're in California and like that situation comes up where this person wants to sell their home in a year, how like legally is that okay because you're letting them know ahead of time and because a contract is only for a year? Or what does that look like?
It is legal. I mean, every city's a little bit different, but we write it into the lease in the addendum that the owner will be, well, we just say that the owner will be reoccupying or will need to reoccupy the home, whether it's for a sale or whether they actually are reoccupying. Uh, I mean, we tell the tenants what it is, but I don't personally don't do the leases, so I don't know the exact terms used and whatnot, but
Okay.
um, yeah, usually that is allowed
Cool.
depending on the city.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they're all so different. Like I live
Yeah,
also right next to St. Paul. There's super strict rental restrictions over
yeah,
there. There's also a ton of renters. There's a lot of landlords and a lot of people that want to invest there, and properties usually cost less. I'm also like not keeping up with the policies on a day-to-day basis and don't have properties over there. It's like everywhere is just
it's
a whole
different.
different story.
Yeah, exactly. That's why it is nice to, if you don't know all those rules and whatnot, like have somebody help you write the lease at the very least.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you think you can property manage, it'd be not a bad idea to have somebody
Yeah.
help you with the lease if you're not really super aware of
Yep.
what's needed.
Yeah. That's great. Now, after you've done the pre-screening and they want to set up a showing and they love the place, what do you do next?
I let them apply, and there's a couple ways to do this. I like using some sort of third party application system because they seem to feel safer that it's, their personal information is going into a professional online situation. My company doesn't take Zillow apps. I don't even know why, but we use something called Insight Applicant. My dad rents his units out himself and he uses something called Rent Spree. But I know there's plenty of other ones out there. I don't even know all the names of them, but you can easily look online. And yeah, I have them fill out the application and I give them clear timelines of when I'm going to be processing the application so that they know, because I also want that if I like them, but like I don't have that much time to process in the next 2 days, or it's
Mm-hmm.
like today I showed a place to someone. I was like, I'm not going to be processing applications this weekend. So you'll just get it in by Monday and I'll work on it then and just try to
Mm-hmm.
tell people the expected timeline. And yeah, what do you use?
I use something called RHR. It's rental history reports. It's actually local to Minnesota, but I'm pretty sure that they run them everywhere in all states, counties, etc. Um, I never used Zillow or apartments.com. I almost used Zillow and then I had to put in my social and my information. And I was like, I just don't love Zillow. So I
Yeah.
don't really feel like doing that. I'm just going to stick to, which I know I had to go through some sort of screening stuff when I signed up for RHR as well. It's totally fine. I'll just stick with that. Um, we've used Appfolio before and I've used Yardies before. I didn't like Yardies. I didn't feel like I could see into the algorithm. So I didn't feel like I was able to set as many clear expectations, but that's when I was working for somebody else. So I didn't have any authority over the say or to be able to change that. But the first company I worked for, we used RHR and had very set, like black and white criteria that we used. Can see people's credit score, could see people's like background, where if they've had any like sometimes their work information and sometimes previous addresses are going to be in there, but not always. And then if they did have stuff on their credit, you could see if something went to, or like evictions, you could see if it went to
Questions.
collections.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like, and once we get the applications in, like, I feel like the credit report is an important one to look at. And
Mm-hmm.
they are a little confusing to read at first, I would say, but just spend some time with it. And like, you'll see, like, I've seen a couple credit reports that are like 690, which, usually want it to be over 700, at least 650. It just depends on, I work for a bunch of different owners. So they are the ultimate decision makers, not me.
Okay.
Um, but I've seen one that's 690 where there was something out for collections recently, and then I've seen one that's 690 that they're young and they were late on one payment 2 years ago. So it's like, I would much rather do the one that's person that's young because they just haven't built up much credit yet, and they had one late payment a couple years ago versus something that
Mm-hmm.
actually went to collections and they're not paying it, or if somebody has really high uh, debts and they're not paying it off. Like there's different reasons for the credit scores, so
Yeah.
that definitely is something that you should take into account when you're deciding if that meets your criteria.
Mm-hmm. I also like to call the landlords that they where they currently live. Sometimes I think I get BS information and I'm not sure really how accurate it is, but at least it helps me sleep at night. So some of the questions I like to ask are like, how long have they lived there? Do they have any pets? How many people have been living there? Um, would you re-rent to them? Have they paid on time? Are they keeping the property in good condition? Have they received any lease violations? And then if they gave proper notice to leave. I mean, there's been some times where just based on conversation, I was like, did you tell your landlord you wanted to leave yet? Because if you didn't, what's going to stop you from deciding you don't like my house and then
And then
just
leaving.
peacing out? Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's something I like with landlord references is I think the best landlord reference is the landlord before the most recent one, especially in my area,
Mm.
because it's hard to get people out in my area. It's really hard
Yeah,
to
that's
evict
true.
people. So if somebody is
Yeah.
like, get this guy off my property, they're probably going to be like, oh, he's great.
Yeah.
To get him out.
I wish I could keep him here.
Yeah. But like the one two back, I mean, you don't always get that luxury of getting multiple landlord references,
Hmm.
but definitely one is always really helpful. And I like the question, will you re-rent to them as well? That seems pretty clear to me. Like if you're going to re-rent to them, then I can rent to them too. I mean,
Hmm.
granted, you don't know the landlord, but still.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't normally call on like their current employer, but I have before, just depending on what the situation is and also what the pay stubs look like. And sometimes I do a little bit of research into the company or a little Googling on LinkedIn and stuff like that. I mean, I don't think this happens as much with small landlords as it does with like really large companies. I don't know for sure. I'm just basing this on pure information I know from small landlords versus like working at large apartment complexes. Is we've had a couple of times where like there were these people that were in these, I don't know, scam rings. I don't know if that's what it's called, that would try to like make up but they also knew that we weren't solely looking at credit scores. So they knew what our rental criteria was and they were able to like get away with it for various reasons. Now I know these companies have changed their policies of like how they verify your actual identity, I guess. But I've seen a lot of like fake pay stubs and stuff like that. So doing a little bit of research into that, if you have a gut feeling or you're not feeling comfortable about something, is always a good idea. Otherwise, I like to just make sure like, do these check numbers seem like they make sense? Is like the January number higher than the February number? If so, that seems a little bit odd. Or
Yeah.
is their name on it? Is their name spelled correctly? What is their mailing address on there?
Yeah. That's so true. Like making sure everything matches up and the stories align is a very good thing. I also look on LinkedIn. Um, Sometimes I try to see if I can find their Instagram because, like, if it's a definitely a no pets place and they have a whole Instagram with their dog in it, it's like, okay, are you
Yeah.
bringing your dog to the property? Um, and yeah, I like to do a little bit of Googling. And also with LinkedIn, it's like looking like where you say you work and like, are you connected with this person that you say is your supervisor? Stuff like that is
I
a
did not
good,
think about that one.
yeah. Yeah. It's like, I think all that little extra Google search goes a long way. And
Yeah.
just kind of understanding this person and making sure they're not a scammer. This is just a random story, but it just happened and it was like fresh on my mind. I just rented a property and this has never happened. I've been working at this job 3 years now and this has never happened. But the new renters moved in like 2-3 weeks ago and they messaged us. They're like, can you please take the listing down? Like people are like knocking on our doors and asking to come in and they want to rent the place. And I was like, we don't have any listings up still. Like, what are you talking about? And so then I start looking online and I found a Facebook Marketplace rental. And
Yeah.
we don't put it on our stuff on Facebook Marketplace. This house rented for like 2,900 or 2,950. The Facebook Marketplace rental was for 1,600. So people were
Of course they're getting like,
knocking down the
wow.
doors to try to get into this cute little house.
Literally.
And unfortunately, one of the ladies said, but I already paid. And so, like, I guess she got scammed. But something we do is we put a watermark on our photos, but they used our photos with the watermark. And I mean, I immediately, called it out as a scam
Flagged
and
it. Yeah.
whatever. But then I think they put it somewhere else that I couldn't find. So it was interesting, but just beware of that when you put your listings out too. If you are noticing some fishy stuff, people coming from random places, there could be stuff going on in the background.
That totally sucks. I did a showing with somebody and they had that happen previously. And then they wanted I think they're going to be great. We are actually going to be renting to them. And they filled out all of our criteria and everything correctly. And they're like, we really just want to pay you cash because we had this happen. And I was like, no, don't pay me cash. Like, that's so silly. Do not. That's going to be worse. Like, I use a third party program. I will only accept rent from there because what if I do take your cash? That's cash. You can't get it back. And also there's no proof you gave it to me. So I could just say I never got this from you.
Yeah.
But that scam is happening on Airbnb as well, of like people are saying that they're I don't know if it's on that site specifically, but it's happening with short-term rentals that people think that they rented X, Y, and Z place and they're there to spend the night, and then they can't get in because it doesn't exist.
It's so weird. I feel like in the last couple of months, I've heard about so many different scams, and I'm just like, people go out and get a real job. If you're that good at scamming people,
imagine the things you could do with a real job. Yeah. It's nuts.
Yeah, it's crazy. All right. If any red flags come up, like, trust your gut. Like, going back to like what we talk about of like just trusting your intuition, and if something feels off, it probably is off and it might not be just right. So like, let yourself go with that. And this is kind of back to pre-screening. Like, I like to price things not at the very tippy top and rather slightly under that so that you get maybe some more applicants rather than just one. Because if you only have one applicant and you don't like that, like, it just, something feels off, but you can't pinpoint exactly what it is. You want to have a couple so that you could go with another party.
To wrap things up, a couple other things I want to mention is I don't work for RHR or have an affiliate link, but I do really like a couple of things that they have on there. Is I do believe they have a lease. They do have a rejection letter that you can send to people of like, hey, here's what we were looking for. This is why you weren't accepted. Here's this blanket letter. They also have different like lease violations, amendments, and stuff like that. And as Caitlin mentioned, I would definitely still get help with writing some of these just to make sure that you are following the correct procedures for your area. And then also there's probably a multifamily association for your state or for your city. Specifically in Minneapolis, as of a couple years ago, if you would attend a couple of their classes on like how to be a landlord, you would actually get money off of your off of your rental license.
Oh, cool.
And get some like credits and stuff back. But also it's awesome for new landlords that these classes are totally free. The
Yeah.
multifamily association ones, those I think do cost money. But they do have like specific seminars with breakouts with like really awesome information about people that are doing this on like very, very large levels. And
Yeah, I think that's a great idea to try to learn how to be a landlord. People just think like, oh, well, anybody can be a landlord. And yes, anybody can be a landlord, but there is a learning curve. Like, I luckily had my dad to call whenever something came up, and he's a little harsh in his old age, so I'd usually call my brother afterwards and be like, what do you think about this? But
I love that. It's kind of like when you like sometimes I'll ask like my manager like for real estate some things, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get a corporate answer. Now how can I go ask somebody else this and like be able to weigh out the two? But
yeah,
sorry, continue.
no, totally. It's like, get your opinion and somewhere in the middle that works for me. Get some options and then figure out what's going to make the most sense for you. But yeah, being a landlord is not cut and dry. It always, so many things come up. Even with leasing, so many different things come up, and there's so many different laws to work around, and you just want to make sure that you're doing everything right. So make sure you know those laws when you're going in, and like talk to somebody, learn from somebody. You could do a consult with one of us, and we can teach you more, especially if you're in one of our areas. We can teach you more specifically about what to work on within our areas. But yeah, overall, that's how you kind of work on the application process of finding a new tenant. Once you do accept someone, work on getting the security deposit and figure out, there's new laws now, like in Oakland near where I live, like you can't take more than 1 month's rent if you own an apartment building. You only can if it's a single family home. But like that kind of stuff, like make sure you know those laws, do a lease, and do a move-in inspection. Take a ton of pictures of your property. Take some notes. And so like you really have good reference. Like recently this guy was like, oh yeah, that big scratch was already there beforehand. And I was like, no, it wasn't. You moved in like 9 months ago, and I have that picture of that wall that doesn't have it on it. So you are going to be charged for that out of your security deposit. So yeah, just preparing yourself for the tenancy before it starts, so that when it does end, you are prepared for whatever happens. And really it's a protection for the tenant too, because if there are nicks and scratches and there's a hole here, whatever, like it protects them too for the future when you say, well, that wasn't there before, and the tenant, or if the landlord says it wasn't there, but the tenant's like, no, I have these pictures that it was there since day one.
Yeah. I like to do the same thing. And so I think my two biggest takeaways from this are, one, setting clear expectations up front. And that starts with in the listing before you even speak with them.
Yeah.
And number two is just be prepared, do research before you start listing your place. Like see what the city rules are. Get a lease, maybe talk to a lawyer or somebody else in your area and see how you can get help with that, and what you want to set your criteria to, and what you're allowed to set your criteria to.
Yeah, totally. And then, and one thing I didn't mention was I love doing private showings instead of an open house, because then you get to talk to the people and you get to meet them and you get to find out all about them while you're together. And especially if you are the property manager, you want to create that relationship right up front. And it's a good way of doing it. It does take a little bit more time, but I usually just try to stack them back to back. And it's not much extra time than an open house, because you're not waiting around to see if somebody's going to come in the 2-hour period.
Yeah, I agree. I do the same thing. I like to set mine in 15-minute increments.
Yeah.
That way there is they see each other.
Yeah.
So you still have that like competitive feel.
Yep.
Yes. Actually this past spring, it was awesome. I had somebody, they were like, I don't know. I think they were the first or one of the first showings, and they waited like an hour and a half out in their car, like basically right outside. And I was going to my car and they're like, Rianna, wait, we want to apply. And I'm like, you've been standing here waiting. And they're like, yes, we got to be the first ones to get our application in. And it was awesome. So yes, a little friendly competition never hurts anybody.
Nope.
And yeah, I'm agree. I like to spend private time, like getting to know people and, asking them why they're moving. You know, maybe this place, like, actually it doesn't end up being a good fit, but I have something else that would maybe make more sense, or can give them some advice on something in the area that they're looking for. I'm not really sure, but
yeah. And last week I met a woman that's going to move really close to me, and she was really nice. And I'm like, I want to be friends with you. And we both have 7-year-old boys. And I'm like, we might be becoming friends soon.
Ladies. That's awesome.
Or we're going to see each other walking on the street, and I at least want to say hi. I actually randomly see a lot of people that I rent houses to now.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, but
it makes you keep your reputation good.
Yeah, exactly. I got to be nice.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. All right. Well, if anybody has any more questions, just let us know. DM us at Invest and Invested, or book a call with us. We're happy to help further. But these are some little tidbits that we've learned after some years leasing properties. Yes. And I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned a little something, and we'll see you next week.
All right. Sounds good. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, friends. That's the episode for today. We so appreciate you being here with us, and would love if you could leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen to podcasts.
And don't forget to subscribe for future episodes, and check the show notes to sign up for the waitlist for our retreats and future coaching programs. Stay rested, friends, and talk soon.